Welcome, guys, to another Team Berserk deck profile here. We got Nick's Cell Surge deck here. Nick's been playing Cell Surge since a little bit before set 11, and every set since he's been adding about one card each set. And looks like he added another card for set 14. Nick, take it away with this horrifying hand destruction.
Everybody's nightmare. So here's Cell Surge. For anyone who wasn't aware of this deck, it really sucked before set 11, basically. It was kind of okay in set 10, I guess, but set 11 really just set it over the edge. Why it wasn't that good before, because it didn't have the 9-drop. We'll be showing that shortly. Basically why it's good is you get a search top 5, secret card goes into your hand, and then as long as you take something, anything from your hand goes into the drop. So essentially the 9-drop lets you actually +1 off of it. Why it's strong is because it's hand destruction that doesn't need to interact with the opponent, which can be extremely oppressive when you're talking about double striking crits. So on the Awakened side, you can't do any of the skills unless it's at 4 life or less. Again, that's why it sucked before, is because there wasn't really any ways of awakening. Now you can with the 9-drop, at least optionally. The 2 abilities, they're only activate main. If it could do activate battle and main, then this would just be absolutely busted. I would love that. But basically, one's all battle cards come in rest mode for this turn and the next turn, and then the other one is you choose a card, KO it, and then snipe a card from opponent's hand. So those in themselves are extremely strong effects. So we'll just go through the deck and what's really powerful about it. When you're doing your mulligan phase, this is one of the 2 targets that you really need to see in your starting 6. So it's going to be the Demigod Unison. I'm not going to explain him because everyone knows what he does at this point. Just a very sticky card that again allows you to self-awaken. And then the 9-drop, which you can send it from drop to warp. You can draw 1 card. Once you've looked at it, you have now the option to take the life or not, which the optional after the fact is pretty huge. So we run 4 of those. We run 4 of Frieza Charismatic. I don't really understand why you'd ever want to run less than 4, but usually when I run into people running less than 4, it's just because they own less than 4. This is one of the most important cards in the deck. If you are charging it, you're already on a very ugly downward slope. You want to be able to get at least 2 of these off in a game. At minimum, you want 1, but if you can do 2 or more, it just becomes easy mode. So basically, when a card is KO'd, which is literally all the deck does is KOing battle cards, he comes out free, and he's a crit, and there's a chain of that. Next up for our turn 2 plays is going to be Rebriens. We want 4 in the deck, extremely important. I think the set 10 version, right before set 11, I was only running 3 of these, and I was siding 1. Definitely a mistake. Always going to be at 4. The battle card that comes out off of this effect is going to be Son Goku, Power of Legend. He's awesome. Again, he comes out off of the discard effect from your opponent. He's a 15k critical, and then secondly, you can warp him and you can warp a battle card that's 4 or less. Doesn't ignore barrier, but that's just extremely powerful. So again, it's board clear, it's crit, it's really strong. The last 2 energy play that we have is Draw Apes. 2 is fine. I think if you start needing more than 2 in the deck, again, I think you're just not hitting that aggressive curve that you need. This is always secondary to this. You're almost always going to reap again before you do an ape. The most powerful card in the entire deck is the Dark Broly Unison. This comes down for 3 energy. It's got a +2. You can ditch a card. If you do, your opponent's going to KO a battle card of their choosing and drop a card of their choice. Extremely powerful. He's a double striker. He's 20k. He also has a +0 that can remove a marker. That's becoming more and more prevalent these days, but Unison's becoming integral to a lot of decks. It's the powerhouse because it's a +2. Kai is usually the only card that's ever getting rid of this, the Kai SCR. I would say the 3rd most important card in the entire deck is going to be this Dabura. This came out in set 11 as well. We run 4 of him because essentially between these 2 cards, it's a free Rebrian every turn. And that's what makes it so broken, is instead of paying energy, you're now ditching a card, doing this to find ball for the activate main. The reason why it's Rebrian is you activate main to remove a marker. He has an auto that as soon as a marker is removed via skill, then the opponent drops cards, so This just allows you to do a free rebrand every turn between these two, so it's wild strong. So you definitely want to be mulliganing for these if you're going to be making to at least turn 3. You want at least 2 of these in your hand if you can at some point. Not always possible, but is what it is. The target he can grab is going to be this ball. This ball is important because it coincides with the Frieza. The best target you can possibly get is, in my opinion, is going to be this double strike Frieza for a Xeno. So it grabs the Xeno. What is important to know is you can swing with this, do ball, and then when he's played, he actually gets played in active mode. So you get to swing with him again if need be. 9 times out of 10, you're probably never actually going to be swinging into anything outside of a battle card that's sideways or a unison. If those targets aren't on board for me to get rid of, then I'll just do the activate main. The activate main is really good. It gets even better when your opponent has 3 energy. So it allows you to send this and all the cards underneath to the drop, and then you can choose any card that's an extra card that's 1 cost or less in the drop and send it back to hand if your opponent has 3 energy. So even when you're doing that effect, you are not losing cards, possibly gaining, depending how that process went, and they're losing. So again, just more free discard, which is awesome, and it's your choice. The 2 different super combos we're doing, these move around every single set. The only thing that remains constant is 2 Dr. Gero. He's really important because your targets of these are extremely important to be able to have in the drop. So we're always going to be mulliganing for him as possible. We're in a more aggressive meta right now. You would think that would mean this deck should have more negates, but it won't. This is really important because this gets you out of those early crit swings that a lot of decks are doing right now. Brings you up to 20, very relevant number, and then it bottom decks an opponent's card. So being able to get out of a crit swing and then them going neg1 in hand is pretty huge. We run 2 of the Android 14 and 15. This card really isn't super amazing, but for a tech choice, at the end of the day, I really like consistency. This used to be the Android 18 champ card, where if you had 5 or less in hand, it'd be plus 10. There's definitely situations where it's missed, but end of the day, this is a consistent 0 plus 5k for the deck. It does show that it's 1 plus 5, but in Cell Surge it's 0 energy that is removed. So yeah, at the end of the day, like, this is just a tech choice for consistency. We want to make sure that there's at least 12 yellow cards in the entire deck to be able to allow you to awaken for your Surge ability. So that's the biggest reason that's there. I wish it would be something a little bit more useful, but as far as consistency and awakening, it does the job. 2 Rosies. They could be in the side, but since we're more or less in the best 1 meta, they're going to be in. Excuse me, they're going to be staying in the main. I think 2 and 1 would probably be the number for main and slide, so 3 at some point. This is a really good card just because it's deflect, and then it's always going to land. Your opponent discards 2 cards, so if your rebrands are in life and you can't find them, or if you're playing a prolonged matchup where you're just going to 4 or 5 turns, she's great. So she's also a Unison Slayer, so she puts in a lot of work in your slower matches or your blue matchups. So one of our last tech choices is going to be Chill the Assailant. Really doesn't come up too frequently. Again, against blue it's good. Against decks that have so in like early turns where they have something with barrier. So if they have a bigger hand size, say you're playing against something with the Bojack, it's not too hard for those opponents, like say Soul Striker, to have a bigger hand. You can just tap 2 for this. They have 7 in hand, it ignores barrier, KOs it. They start losing value. Tech choice, again, this is really good because it's a double striker, it applies pressure, but utility-wise, in the drop, it is somewhat relevant. It almost never gets used for this ability because it takes up energy, but you can do 1, send it from drop to warp, and you can KO something that's 3 or less on the board. So, not amazing, but it's still board clear, so at the start of every turn of your opponent's main phase, they choose 2 cards and KO them. So, it's come up as something that is relevant. The main finishers for the deck is going to be Man in the Mission. I used to always just keep them as a 1 of, but again, it can be really hard to close a game out with this. Or if you don't see this card, it can be really hard to close out a game. Primarily, if you're curving well, you want your opponent to be at 5 life, 0 cards in hand, and then you just do a double strike crit, getting them down to 3 life, and then from there, it's almost impossible to lose. The newest edition, so this is the one new card this set, is the new Majin Buu SCR, the Kibito Kai. This card's wild good. I was a little disappointed that the ruling for 2 Unisons can't be in play went to yours goes to drop, which is slightly disappointing. It'd be hella broken if you could, but being able to steal and then getting off an effect for stopping battle card turns is extremely relevant. This is really good because defensively it makes it worthwhile to actually awaken on your defensive end. Normally you would never want to do that with Cell Surge, you want to save it for on your main phase. But this gives it a reason. It's a floodgate in itself. It can steal a unison, that's extremely important. So it just allows you to get 1 turn later, give you a reason to protect life earlier on in the game if need be. So that's the deck for the most part. You're killing your opponents on turns 3 or 4. If it's blue or some stall black decks, it'll be turn 5. Outside of that, this has been an extremely well performing deck for me for set since 10. But especially so since set 11, and the deck almost never changes. It's just a few little tech choices for what changes in the meta, and usually that differs, like with the super combo and maybe something like this. So that's aggro Cell Surge. I don't think there's a better way to play the deck. There are definitely other ways to play it for your own playstyle, but I think this is definitely the most impressive way to play. So thanks for stopping by.
Perfect. Thanks for showing off the deck.
You're welcome.